I think the biggest thing is you have to focus on building the team that you trust to carry out the mission that you and frankly your team come up with. Because at the end of the day, without that trust, it makes it too hard to come to work, and it makes it too hard to implement things. And there's so many nuances in there, but that's the biggest thing. That's the 50,000 foot view, is consistently hire that team that you trust. And if you don't trust them, you you really have to look at getting rid of them.
A new patient group in Wright Chat Nation. Welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian Wright here, and welcome in to another edition of the New Patient Group podcast, Fireside Chat edition, that is, and our third one. Today, I welcome in very good friends of mine and longtime New Patient Group customers, the great Dr. Jep Paschal and his wonderful office manager, Lisa Torino. And we're going to talk about some high-level stuff around how to create high-performing, high-trust teams, the commitment you must have as a leader to ever have a chance of getting there. And whatever the issues may be, if you have high turnover, people won't implement what you're saying, you can't find good people, there's a recipe of overcoming all of that. And it's very different than what a lot of you out there may be thinking. And we're going to dive into some wonderful things. These are great friends of mine, like I said, longtime customers, and we achieved with this practice higher level things than maybe any practice we've ever worked with. And there's very specific reasons for that. They have a growth mindset. They have a culture to always be learning. Their leaders, him and Lisa, by the way, are some of the most coachable people I have ever met, right? It's not your team, everybody. It's you. If you want your team to become better, you better be coachable. You better be the first to role play. You better be reading books. You better be finding ways, office managers, doctors, whoever else is on your quote unquote leadership team, to constantly show your team that you're willing to get better today than you were yesterday. And we talk about some amazing things. So without further ado, let's dive in to another edition of the New Patient Group podcast.
Welcome aboard the New Patient Group flight deck. Less chaos. Check. Less stress. Check. Less advertising costs. Check. More personal and financial freedom. Check. All right, business checklist completed. Let the takeoff roll begin. Welcome to Season 7 of the New Patient Group Audio Experience, a podcast dedicated to forward-thinking doctors wanting to learn innovative ways to run their business today so your practice can achieve new heights tomorrow. And now your host. He's the founder and CEO of New Patient Group, managing partner of Wright Chat, and a trusted motivational speaker for Invisalign, Orthophi, and others. Brian Wright.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Chat. We're really excited to be here with you tonight. My name is Brian Lewis. I'm the VP of Sales here at Wright Chat. And it's going to be a great conversation, with some really great minds. They're really insightful. This is going to be fun, and we're really going to dive into some really great topics tonight. So some of these topics include things about leadership, accountability, and what it means to create a growth mindset within your team and how it can really transform your practice. Before we get started, I want to take a brief moment to thank all of you for being here tonight, and especially all of our clients and industry partners who are logged in. We appreciate you being here and making this possible to partner with us as we continue to share great information with the industry. I also want to introduce my amazing colleague, friend, and co-host, Stephanie Solomon. She manages public relations, events, marketing, business development, really kind of all hats under one roof for both Wright Chat and New Patient Group. Stephanie and I will be monitoring the Q&A box throughout the session tonight. So please submit any questions you have for our speakers. We want this to be an engaging session. So please take advantage of this opportunity and pick these guys' brains and really get insights from some of the experts that we have with us tonight. If you don't use Wright Chat or New Patient Group, I highly recommend you look into us. We help your practice in a lot of different ways. On the Wright Chat side, whether it's handling new patient calls like we've done for years, making sure you're not missing opportunities, but we also are starting to do some really great things with pending patient management. So if you're interested, check us out on our website, wrightchat.com, and you can schedule a meeting with myself and Brian, and we can tell you a little bit more about that. We're kind of doing a pilot with a couple practices. So if you're interested, hit us up quick, and we could get you to the front of the list. newpatientgroup.com as well. Stephanie's the one that'll meet with you and tell you about all the amazing things that New Patient Group can do to help your practice from digital marketing, from social media to business coaching, TC coaching, leadership and development. There's so many great things we can help with your practice to really make sure we're creating a plan with you that's really going to help your practice thrive. So with that, I'm going to jump into some introductions. First off, I'm proud to introduce the incredible Brian Wright. He's the founder and CEO of New Patient Group, managing partner of Wright Chat, and as a business and life coach to some of the most well-respected names in dentistry and orthodontics, whether it's through his incredibly popular podcasts or speaking at major industry events like the AO, Orthopreneurs, Nexus, Align. Brian's passion for helping business owners create a vision and guiding teams on how to execute them flawlessly really shines through. His leadership, innovative approach, and insightful strategies have made a significant impact on the industry. And we lovingly refer to him as the Tony Robbins of healthcare. Next, I'm really excited to introduce Dr. Jep Paschal and Lisa Torino of Paschal Orthodontics. Dr. Paschal is a dedicated husband, father of 3, and a really forward-thinking orthodontist that's deeply immersed in the transformative power of technology. He's renowned as an orthodontic innovator, and he lectures worldwide on the most advanced orthodontic trends, techniques, and technologies that improve patient care. He's recognized as a leader, as one of the leading experts in digital orthodontics, 3D printing, and strategic integration of technology in the orthodontic landscape. He practices in Madison and Greensboro, Georgia, alongside his amazing office manager, Lisa, who's been with Paschal Orthodontics for over a decade and even started out as one of Dr. Paschal's patients. So I couldn't be more excited. There's going to be a great time tonight. And again, ask questions, engage with us, and really pick everyone's brain and challenge these guys as they're talking tonight about some really great topics. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Brian, and thank you all again for being here tonight.
All right. Thanks for the introduction. Welcome inside the broadcast booth, everyone. Hey, Lisa, how have you put up with him for more than 10 years?
It's been a joy.
It's been a joy.
It's been a great 15 years. I've learned a lot. I really have. I've been exposed to a lot in the industry and got to meet some amazing people along the way and really help, I think, advance orthodontics. And so that's a very exciting component to what we do. So yeah, it's been a great 15 years.
No, you two, knowing you like I do, make a great team, and welcome in everybody. Wright Chat, New Patient Group customers, podcast followers that are on. Welcome in. Appreciate your support as always. I've got 2 great guests on tonight. This is our 3rd one. So if you've been following along, we launched it with Bob Skopak, Dr. Skopak. That was towards the beginning of the year. We followed that with the great Dr. Mark Olson. And then we're on tonight with Dr. Paschal and Lisa. And we have a wonderful relationship. We're going to dive into a lot of really great things. And one of the big things that I go around teaching is a very different mindset than what you're going to hear from a lot of in-industry people talk about on stage. And our customers master this. And their mindset follows right along with it. And if this is your first Fireside Chat, really what this is if Jep, Lisa, and I went and sat at a bar together and had some wine and some food and just started talking off the cuff, that's what these are. It's not scripted. We're not pre-planned, but we are going to dive into some very specific things tonight that I think will benefit a lot of you, whether you're a team member, whether you're a doctor, an OM. Lisa, starting with her, is the single best office manager I have ever worked with in 12 years almost in orthodontics. And yes, I would say this even if she wasn't staring at me in the screen. So I'm not saying that because I'm pressured to say it. She is the single best, and there's very specific reasons.
For the record, Lisa, he has said that to me. If he said it to me once, he said it to me 100 times. So
thank you.
And he is a very lucky dude to have you, and I know he knows that because he said that to me. If he said it once 100 times, but as you all know, the previous 2, if you've joined, I've always started off with a little bit of a story. I think Bob Skopak's story was hilarious. Mark Olson's was too, with the mouse when he was visiting my house. That hopefully intrigues you if you haven't watched that one, to go back and watch it on our YouTube station. But Jep Paschal is one of the brightest human beings I have ever met in my entire life. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And, Dr. Bob Skopak is one of the simple, very bright guy, obviously, but one of the simplest humans you'll ever want to come across, just as far as the way they articulate things and he says stuff. Well, we have a mastermind group and we meet the second Wednesday of every month and one time a year in person in our doctor spouse event. But we also have our doctors visit other doctors' practices and just monitor for a day. Well, Jep was visiting Bob Skopak's practice in North Barrington, and we had a day of it. And then we were at Bob's house afterwards. We're in his basement and we're talking, having some wine, recapping for the day. And Jep gets into this story, and I don't remember exactly what the story was. We were just talking about this offline before we went live. And for those of you who've ever watched the episode of Friends where Joey was going to speak at Monica and Chandler's wedding, and he wanted to sound really smart, so he came up with his speech, and then he went to the thesaurus and he changed literally every single word in the entire speech using the thesaurus. Well, sometimes listening to Jep talk, he's so bright in the words he uses, it'll lose me. I'm like, oh my God, where are you going with this? Well, we're in Bob's basement and Bob and I are listening to him speak, and I can read Bob like a book. And he and I are looking at each other, Bob and I go, all right, I got this. And I turn to Jep and I say, dude, you got to stop. We have no idea what you're talking about. And we all got a good laugh.
I think
from
some
it.
of that had to do with how much y'all had to drink that night. I'm just going to say that out loud.
Us or you?
So, I don't think I was quite as far in as you two were. So, I'll just leave it there.
So Bob, so when you walk into Bob's basement, everybody, he's got these two tall wine cabinets or wine cellars. And the one on the left, houses the really good bottles. And the one on the right are just, I like them, but I like them and they're $10, 15, that kind of thing. Well, when I first got to know Bob and his wife, Stephanie, they would have me out to the house and I noticed they would go to the left cabinet and pull out the good ones. Well, as time passed and our relationship developed, I noticed them started going to the right cabinet. And I asked him once, like, shouldn't that be the opposite? Like all the things we've helped you with in our relationship, you should go to the good ones now. But anyway, that was reversed. But that was a good night, and welcome in, you two. I miss you a lot, and ready to dive in. And everyone, obviously, we're dealing with a down economy. And the more I travel to speak, and the more people come aboard or think about coming aboard, I see the exact same mistake across the board. And what we're about to describe and talk about, it's much easier said than done. But people are hurting out there. Orthodontics, the latest report I've got, some are over 15% down. Some reports a conversion has dipped into the high 40s, low 50s. And there's a lot of people that they try to speed up when production's down, conversion's down, new patients are down. Instead of focusing on one or two things, they try to focus on 100 and speed up the wheel to try to catch up. And the very opposite happens. The same way if you're trying to lose weight and you try to speed up and do 1,800 things at once, the scale is not going to go in your favor. And it's the same way in business. And I have never come across in my life an organization that I walked into to coach that was better at what we're going to talk about tonight around the culture and the leadership and the focus and how you can actually move faster by focusing on things, one or two things at a time. And I want to welcome you two in. I want to talk about this. When I walked into your practice after we met, I think it was at the OrthoFi national event, you were so ready for us to have success in your organization. And I want you to talk to the audience a little bit about just some of the things you did over the course of the years to create a culture like you have.
Well, Brian, first off, thanks for the wonderful introduction and thanks for the props. I'm humbled by your opinion and your perspective on our practice. But I think the biggest thing is you have to focus on building the team that you trust to carry out the mission that you and frankly your team come up with. Because at the end of the day, without that trust, it makes it too hard to come to work and it makes it too hard to implement things. And there's so many nuances in there, but that's the biggest thing. That's the 50,000 foot view is consistently hire that team that you trust. And if you don't trust them, you really have to look at getting rid of them. You have to invite them to leave somehow, some way. And I know that looks different in different states and different areas of the world, but you have to focus on the people you trust, because if you don't trust them, it's going to be a failed relationship. And I'll pass the next part off to Lisa. So
Yeah, we have a term really that we use. It's about being on the bus. Everybody's on the bus. We have the same vision, the same goals. And, if there's someone that is on the team that is not going down the same path, then, they get off the bus. And that's an important component. It's very challenging. It can be, but I mean, we've all had it. We've all had what we call the bad apples or the cancers, and if you allow that to fester and to grow, it can really ruin a lot of hard work that you've put into growing your practice and growing that trust with your patients and your team. And it's not easy, but it is necessary. It really is. And I'll go even further that it really depends on the doctor's leadership. Whenever we first met with Brian and new patient group, there was a lot to kind of review and a lot to digest. And I can tell you that Dr. Paschal always said, yes, we are going to implement this. And, going to this point of doing things slower than rather faster, but having that leadership from the top, it went down to me, and it was so easy to just have it run pervasive throughout the office. And so there was no questions. We all knew what the job was. We all knew what we needed to do. And so I'll second that with the doctor's leadership as well. It's very important whenever you're making changes within your office, whether it be a bracket system or, how we answer the phones or how we greet patients when they walk in the door. It really depends on the doctor. I would have him come up to me and say, why are we not meeting them at the door anymore? What's going on? He would check in with us at the beginning, making sure that we were doing everything that we needed to do. So that's an important component.
And, just a key part of this is your relationship, is the doctor's relationship with the office manager, and vice versa, and the office manager relationship with the doctor. Like today it happened, that exact same thing happened. We had a digital process. We've talked about it several times. And I was reminded by another doctor I happened to be on the phone with at lunch. I walked into Lisa's office. I'm like, we've talked about this a couple of times. Why aren't we doing it? And Lisa's like, it's difficult. And I was like, well, then we need to revisit it, and that's what it needs to be, conversational. It's not, it's, I didn't go in there guns blazing, like, damn it, why aren't we doing this? There's a reason, and you have to trust, I have to trust Lisa that there's a reason behind it. And sometimes that reason is we forgot, and that's okay, but we need to institute something where we're not going to forget it anymore. So, that freedom of exchange has to be there.
Absolutely. Well, that trust.
There's four things that you brought up. One is trust. It's something about HR that I want to talk about too. Actually, not that you brought up, but you sparked interest in what, then I want to take this now. A couple of things. So everyone, they brought up trust. So, and this podcast actually just went out, I think yesterday, and it's called Good Christina versus Bad Christina. And this was an office I was in years ago. Don't want to name the practice name. And it was the first time I was there. I'm talking to this girl named Christina, and she's telling me how much she loves the practice. She loves the doctor. She loves the office manager. They're always there when needed. They're not looking over your shoulder. She loves her teammates. The culture's great. And then she goes on and she says, but I'm only here part-time. And she goes on to tell me about the other practice she works in and how much she hates it. Doctor's not involved, horrible leader. Office manager's constantly busting my chops, never there to help. Team is miserable, and they probably think I'm a crappy employee. And it goes back to walking into an environment, because look, when you hire, like Lisa just said it, you're switching bracket systems, new clear liner, you're bringing in us. All these companies are somewhat at the mercy of what your culture is when we walk through the door. And this is a perfect example where you have an employee that's great in one office and she stinks in the other. And it's got nothing to do with her. It's all the leadership team. And this is why it's top down. You all as doctors, you made the choice to own your own business, which therefore makes you an entrepreneur first. And if you don't want to be a leader, you don't want to spend time in the culture, that's when you go work for somebody else. And these two people spend so much time building a high trust team. And that's something where if somebody's great at something, but everybody in the locker room hates them, that's not a high trust team, right? You've got to have people that are going to do the right thing, help each other, et cetera. And that's why their environment thrives. But one of the things you brought up too, or that I know people are thinking, is on the HR side of it. It's so hard to find, especially if you're in the Californias of the world, but it's so hard to find good people that there's such a, I call it an epidemic, but this is, if I go help a restaurant, it's the same thing, is that the person in the office that's causing the problems, you want to get rid of them, but you're afraid that if you do, you're never going to be able to replace them because you can't find anybody. I want you to talk about your commitment to keeping the good people, developing them, and weeding out the ones, regardless of if it's going to put you in a strap situation, may not have enough assistance for a few weeks, whatever it may be. You have a commitment to the culture that you want. And I want you to talk about that.
Lisa, hit it.
Well, I mean, it's something that we just talked about today as well. We have, for whatever reason, an assistant that's out, a very, very good, sound clinical assistant, and she's just out of the office today. And Dr. Paschal was telling me, when we're a team member down in the back, I really don't feel it. There's no stress. There's no, people upset or anything. It's just, it flows very nicely. And how did we get there? I think we get there by a lot of encouragement, a lot of training. I will tell you, Dr. Paschal every single day looks at our staff and says, "Thank you so much for a great day." I cannot recall a day where he doesn't do that. And it's a relationship. We spend most of our time together as a team, sometimes more often than we do with our own families at home, and just cultivating that relationship. And it doesn't mean that I know everybody's business or Dr. Paschal knows personal things, but it's just respect, the passing down of the respect, whether it be in training or listening, understanding if a team member is stressed or struggling, wanting to be a problem solver in those aspects. I guess that's my role in everything, is really to protect the patients, protect my team, protect my doctor. And so it's just being involved. It's caring, and when we hire new people, I always say, I can teach you to be a great assistant or a TC or, an administrative person up front, but I can't teach you to be a good person. And so we really look for that in a person, because the type of training that we can implement, thanks to Brian, we can get them where they need to be. So that's what I think is a big component of it, is that it's just, when you get there, it's easy. People enjoy coming into work. They enjoy picking up slack, quote unquote, for other people, because we care, we care about what our teammates and our family members are going through. So it's just caring, I think. I really do.
And that's Brian, to your question about, how you select people, the culture becomes reflective out in our environment. And we do have one small advantage over major metropolitan areas, is that we're in a smaller community. Both of our practices are in, smaller areas. So out in the country kind of environment. And that is good and bad. It's good in the sense that, we have the ethical part becomes a little bit easier of a discussion, because, one person in our practice more than likely is going to know of somebody or know family of somebody that we're talking to. So that is a distinct advantage. However, it's also a disadvantage too. If we don't have the right culture, we can't hide, period.
Yep.
Nobody wants to work for us. Okay. Word spreads fast. Okay. And that also works on the patient side too, but in regards to HR. So a lot of our thing, I hear a lot of my friends and when their struggles with hiring, a lot of what we do, we have similar struggles. It's not like we're free of it, but we do a lot of advertising when we're hiring somebody from within. A lot out on Facebook, a lot out on, just the internal market that our staff has. And our staff comes with a lot of people, over the years. And frankly, I've gotten to the point now where I just let the staff hire them. I get it out of the way. The only thing I reserve the right to do is blackball. I reserve the right for that. But when it comes to hiring, I'll literally, the last hiring cycle we just did, I was like, look, here's the two I like. Y'all decide,
Well,
and
let me
it is great because the staff owns it then. We own it as a team then. It's not just me owning it.
Well, that's a sign, everybody, of a wonderful culture. And there's something in sports that when the players police themselves and you don't have to be a part of it, that is an ideal culture you all should be looking for. If you have to be so involved and so micromanagement, if you will, you don't have the right people. They may be good performers, but they're low trust. And that's what, I don't remember what season, but seasons ago on the podcast, we talked about the brand awareness you may not be thinking about. And you just brought up a point that I'm not sure a lot of people think of, is you're worried about what the community thinks of you as far as a patient perspective goes. But what are your employees telling other people in the community about you, in your environment, and the culture, right? That's advertising in itself. And not a lot of people
Brian,
spend a lot of time focusing on it.
and let me one up that, just amplify that comment one more level.
You always have to one up me.
No, it's not. I'm not one-upping you, and I'm just amplifying what you're saying. It's even more important, I think, than we give lip service to it, because the older I get and the more established we become in the community, the one thing I'm realizing is that I really have nothing to do with this. It's my staff and what they emulate and what they amplify and reflect into our community. That's what brings the patients in the door, and what brings the parents in the door, and what brings the trust in the door. And, when they sign on with us for that, they trust their kid, or they trust themselves to be treated. No amount of marketing, no amount of advertising, no amount of muffin runs, no amount can overcompensate for that.
And that is what the whole industry is trying to do, is muffin runs and advertisements, and trying to get the mindset of stop it, everybody, go inside your doors. Culture, leadership, repetitive role plays, which we'll talk about in just a minute. That is what moves your business forward, especially during down economic times. You can always rely on that. You cannot rely on outside your door anything to save you when the economy sucks. Go ahead.
I want to be clear on one thing. I'm not saying don't do the muffin runs. I'm not saying don't do the lunches with the doctors or whatever, or marketing and advertising, not saying that. But if you're paying all that to get them in the door, and then when you open the door, it's not inviting and it's not trusting, and then you've literally wasted 50% of your money, because 50% of the people are going to turn around and walk out.
Absolutely. Hey, Steph, let me make this one point and then ask us what they want. So one of the things office managers that are on, or doctors that are on, that have an office manager, or you're thinking about hiring one, I don't know if this is because for most of our existence, we come from outside of the ortho healthcare environment and now been in it for 12 years. But when you look at really nice restaurants, what do the best managers do, right? They're on the floor. They're making sure the waiters have what they need to wait the tables at a high level. They're picking up the slack for the waiters if they're falling behind. They're greeting people when they walk through the door. They're going to the customers that are high dollar customers that keep coming back and shaking their hand. That's what a manager does. And for whatever reason, it drives me nuts. In ortho industry, what do most managers do is they sit inside an office and they become glorified practice management babysitters of the people as well. Your job, and the reason why they've created this culture, and one of, is because Lisa, and she brought it up, your job is to get to know your people. Be there when they need it. Learn and lead with empathy. Be on the floor. Greet the new patients when they walk through the door so they don't sit down. That's the job. And I think so many OMs are either misused or misinterpret what the role is your role is to make other people better, right? Make other people better, put them in uncomfortable positions, role play with them, make them nervous as can be. That's how you advance people forward in their career. It is not to sit in an office. And if you're sitting in an office for the majority of your day, you will never create a high trust team. It is not possible. And doctors, same way. If you don't have one, or you have one, if you're disengaged and you're not involved, you have zippo chance of creating a culture that puts your business on autopilot And this is why it's always, even in a down economy, the best marketing investment you will ever make. Does it pay off tomorrow? No, but it's what makes your business recession proof is what we're talking about. Steph, what's the question?
Hey man, this is from a practice in Jersey, and they want to know, as an office manager, how did you learn to trust your team and feel comfortable giving them space to make mistakes and learn from them?
That's a great question. Really, again, it's a testament to the doctor being patient with the clinician or whomever to make those mistakes and to guide them through that process. I mean, it's not easy, but usually the assistant will let you know. I mean, not by words, but the doctor can see, okay, she's ready for this or he is ready for this. We happen to have a clin lead in our office. And so it's a constant, really evaluating any kind of new hires. We try to meet once a week and talk about what they're good at, what they're proficient at. And then week to week, we work on a new skill set. And so that's something that is very intentional. It does take a lot of time. However, it's pays in spades at the end. So it's really about being intentional about how you train and what you're comfortable with. And then you have to trust them. And it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes, because we've got your back and we're going to be able to, get that corrected. And then we're going to show you the right way to do it. So really, it's having that faith and trust, but it's being involved. It's being intentional with your training and knowing where that clinician or TC is at that time, and then giving them that push. You can do this. This is the next step. When Brian came into our office, it was a little overwhelming. But what we did is we wrote down the most important.
Don't say that.
We wrote down the most important things that we wanted to implement right off the bat. And there were 2 or 3 things. And we worked so diligently on those 2 or 3 things. We would check them off and work on the next group. And that's how we were able to grow and to become the office that we are today. And the goal is always the immersive experience. You want your patients to walk in and feel different. We had always said we wanted to be, Chick-fil-A, but really the Ritz-Carlton, that was our goal, and to be able to provide that experience. And sure enough, several years ago, we had a guy leave a Google review saying that we were the Ritz-Carlton of orthodontic. So,
unsolicited.
We still have unsolicited.
Awesome
we still have a lot of
moment.
work to do. Don't get me wrong. We're not complacent, but it just takes continual effort. Once you sit down and you get comfortable, that's when things can get a little out of hand. So
one quick thing on that. So whoever asked that, this is obviously to everybody, but especially the one who asked that, there is a major misconception around leadership and culture, right? What they're talking about didn't happen in a year, or it didn't happen in 6 months or yesterday. It's an infinite pursuit, understanding that leadership is a trained skill set, right? Think about the amount of training you all give your clinical assistants, right? And then they become really good at it. And then you promote them to lead clinical assistant. What happens? Zippo. No leadership. They go into the most important, difficult position of their career, and they get little to no training on how to be a great leader. And that's a problem with businesses in any industry. Is leadership is the hardest skill set you will ever learn, but you're not going to create and become a great leader in a month, a year, a decade. It is a consistent pursuit of looking at yourself in the mirror and finding out ways that you can motivate better, communicate better. Right. And that's difficult for people, because that means, and the question you asked is that you have to look in the mirror, because high trust teams are not created overnight. They're created on an ongoing, infinite journey with a commitment that everything they're talking about. And it's hard. And I'm convinced that's the reason why not a lot could ever achieve it, because people in this industry and others, they're looking for the quick fix, right? You go to AAO, you see a speaker, you come back and you think that's going to be the wall law, or you go to a leadership event over the weekend, you come back and you think you're going to be a great leader. It doesn't work like that. And these people, and one of the reasons I wanted to have them on, she brought this up, is when I walked into their office years ago, one of the only things they wanted to work on for the entire first year are the phones. You remember that? How much time was dedicated to becoming great at the new patient phone call. And we spent a good 12 months, right? I think it was right around 12 months with that almost being the only focus. And through that, they became so exceptional.
That new call sheet went through more iterations than you can shake a stick at, man.
Oh yeah.
Holy cow.
Miranda
What was
thanks
it?
you for that, by the way.
What was our original length of the initial phone call, Lisa, approximately?
I thought I was doing an amazing job taking 20 minutes of someone's precious time by getting to know them and talking, shooting the breeze. And Brian came in and there was like, what are you doing? This should be 3, 4, 5 minutes tops. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I was able to collect so much more data and be more focused on what needed to be done, and not waste our patients' time. So yeah, I mean, it took a while, and then to actually write everything down, I was like, "Are you crazy? We are beyond this." But it's still something we do to this day, and
That's right.
it's not something I'll change because we scan these and put them in the chart, and we often go back because there's handwritten notes on there. You know, it's invaluable. It truly is.
Well,
Hey, Brian, in regards
good.
I wanted to bounce back to the question real quick in regards to kind of what things to do is you're looking at a micromanager. 20 years ago, I mean, a micromanager. I would be like, nope, I'll take care of that. Nope, I'll do that. No, wait a minute, I'll get that. And the bottom line was it was born out of insecurity and out of a fear of global failure within the practice, and frankly, a fear of spending money. At the end of the day, and all I was doing was restricting my ability to grow and subsequently make more money for everybody involved with the team. And finally, about 5 years in, because it took a long time for me to learn the lesson, I started to let go a little bit. Some of it was forced just because we were getting busier. Despite me, we were getting busier. And then finally, I kind of pulled back. And then finally, one day I realized the key to this whole thing is giving people permission to fail. Because if I give them permission to fail and watch their failure, nobody learns by success. Nobody. But you learn by failure. You learn by failing. And that's true for me, and that's true for every member of our team. But you've got to give them permission to fail. And so that's number one. And then the number two area I was a micromanager on was kind of the relationship type thing. I'd hear a little adversarial tone in a patient or a parent, and I'd immediately like run over. I'd put down whatever I was doing, and I'd run over and inject myself into that conversation. And finally, I figured out half the time I was making it worse, namely because I'm a male and I'm trying to fix it, and that's not what's going on. That 9 times out of 10, they just want to air their grievances. They don't want it fixed. And so finally, I pulled back from that and started letting Lisa and the rest of the team do what they were better at. And I have a quick story, if it'll permit the time. Is yesterday we had a scenario going, adversarial tone, 2 chairs away from us, or from me, and I'm down bonding a case, and I'm sitting down getting ready to bond a case, and my lead assistant was helping me on that particular case, and she whispers in my ear and she says, "Do you want to go take care of that?" And I looked at her and I was like, "No, we're going to let that percolate for a little bit, and we're going to see where this goes." And so I bonded the case. And sure enough, when I got up, the assistant that was helping that case out had solved every one of the problems. The parent was happy, patient was happy, and they literally were walking out. And I never even needed to, quote unquote, waste my time on the case. And everybody was happy. If I had gotten involved, we would have spent either another 10 minutes or I would have created a worse problem. So anyway, that's my 2 tidbits: is learn to delegate and let go, and learn to give your staff permission to fail, and then be there when they do.
You can hear everybody when they talk. It's a lot of reflection in the mirror. right? And when I went into, and this is a common theme among our family members, especially with new patient group, is they're okay looking in the mirror and they understand that's where it starts. And when I went into their practice, when we began the journey, the two you see on here are some of the most coachable people you will ever meet in your life. Right? You can't expect, and this goes back to, there is no, here's how you create the high trust team. This is certainly part of it, is that you have to show your team that you are coachable, that you need to be fixed. You're an ongoing project. And that's why all of you need to be investing in help and getting experts in your environment that can teach you and let your team see you be coached. We did tons. I've got videos I could probably find in 5 seconds right now. We have done so many role plays in their office. And who went first? Oh, she's shaking. I'm going to at some point. Where they went first. And I was just giving the Wright Chat team, one of our
Okay,
leadership
Lisa,
team members.
new patient phone call. Go.
Yeah. No, sell me this pen.
We should totally do this.
Yeah.
Edification, go. Yeah. Sell the pen, baby. Yes. All things, but so many of you out there, you think your team needs to be coached when it's you. You need to be coached. And even if you don't think you need to be coached, you better make believe, have a master's in BS and make your team think that you need to be coached. And that is such a great way to build a high trust team when you role play together. And one of the things they do, I hope you're still doing it, is that block time every single week where you meet and you practice together and you role play together and you do the things that no other business will commit to because they're too busy seeing tables and serving them wine, right? I want you to talk about, what that hour plus every single week, the discipline it takes and how that's helped build a high trust team, a high performing team along with it.
Well, that was a tough one to swallow as well, is carving out a precious hour or 45 minutes once a week. And I was like, gosh, that's going to be really difficult. But Dr. Paschal said, we need to do it. Let's get real about it. So once a week, every Thursday, we meet as a group. A lot of it has to do with training. A lot of it has to do with figuring out some things that are going on within the practice and trying to problem solve through them, whether it be from the digital aspect or patient relations, bonding failures, whatever it may be. It's our time to be together, to sit down and talk about the tone of what's happening in the practice. Gives us an opportunity to say, this is what happened with this patient. How would we handle it different next time? And that's the role playing aspect of it. It's important. It's something that we will never not do again, is carve out this time together as a group to come and to sit and to talk and to role play and to figure out. I call it the problem solving hour. We're figuring things out. We're making it important, and that's a big part of it as well. And I'll circle back to the coachable aspect of it. It is not easy. I will say this to all the office managers, it's not easy having someone come in and telling you, well, this is pretty good, but let's try it this way. And you're like, man, I think we're doing things great. It's not easy. But once you let those guards down and you're able to, receive this information and start practicing and role playing and implementing, I mean, there's no limit to what you can do for building trust, for getting more patients in your door, converting more patients, and having those patients refer patients back to you.
Well, one of the things
Amen.
she just said, amen is right. One of the things she just said is, I think when we start talking experience or you need training and all that, immediately, I think a lot of people's brain goes, well, we're already good at that, right? We're already good at patient experience. We're nice, things like that. And the problem, you look at the Ritz-Carlton, everybody, they require 250 hours of training before you're allowed to speak in person or over a phone to a customer, right? Now, nobody's thinking any of you should give 250 hours before they're allowed to go on the floor and answer the phones or whatever. But you sure as heck can do it on an ongoing basis. And the problem with the mentality a lot of times, thinking you're already good at it, is you totally disregard the expertise that's out there that can take you to an entirely different planet that you otherwise just don't know exists. And they were great at a lot of the stuff, whether it be how to greet people when you walk through the door, the TC exam, the digital workflow, his exam, presenting money, all the stuff. They were damn good at it. One of the better ones that I've ever seen. But they will tell you, even though they were damn good at it, there's an entire universe that they now know they can go to that they may not have known before. And that's the case for all of you out there. And you all have holes, phase 1 to 2 conversion, missed new patient calls, new patient no-shows, conversion, whatever it may be. You're all in an environment where you're charging $5, $6, $7+ $1,000 a pop. So just a couple leaky holes here and there, you lose $500,000 a year. And the solution is not advertising. The solution is to look in the mirror and fix those things internally. So talk about, 1, the commitment to role playing, 2, the commitment to doing it repetitively, right? It's not like we're going to do this for a week and you've got it. We're going to do this on an ongoing basis. And then the level you reached because of that.
Well, I will say,
okay,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Lisa.
It's not the most favorite thing we do on the team, but because it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. But, there are things that you gain practicing, if you want to be an elite athlete, what do? You run, you lift weights, you get uncomfortable. This is part of what we do. And it is something that I have to do, Dr. Paschal has to do in order for it to trickle down and allow our, team members to say, okay, I know this feels silly, but it's an important component to growing and I'm a big problem solver. I want to figure things out. I don't want to repeat mistakes. So talking through these things and role playing through these things can help you figure things out and help you be better. It is something that is definitely not comfortable to do, but you gain so much from it.
Absolutely.
Anything to add?
No, I'll add one thing. For doctors that are listening to this and to all the office managers that are listening to this, feel free to clip this portion out and put it on your phone and show it to your doctor. Doctors got to role play too. You don't get a pass, and I would even one up that and say, be the first to role play, put on the cheerleader outfit and just kidding. It's like if you're not willing to do it yourself, then your team's just going to do it, pardon me, half-assed. So I've just found over the years the more I put myself out there and the more I embarrass myself in front of my team, the better the team. Even if they're laughing at you, it's building that trust and that camaraderie with your team. It's like, oh, okay, he's willing to do it or she's willing to do it. All right, I'll do it too. It's important enough. Obviously, I need to do it too. So that's what I'll add to that, Brian.
Well, and everything they're talking about and we are talking about, it goes into building a high trust team, period. If you leave out any of this, you're not going to maximize the success you could otherwise have. And there's so many. B. Lewis, we have a question.
Yeah, so this one's from Sydney Coombe. How do you choose topics or scenarios to role play? Do you role play as one large group, or do you break them into smaller groups? Like, how do you guys go about it when you're doing them?
Mm-hmm.
That's another great question.
Typically we keep it large. We keep large as far as our team. And I like doing it. I'll let Lisa take the details, but from my perspective, I like doing it that way, with even if it's a clinical thing that we got to work on or an admin thing we got to work on, I want the whole team to understand what each respective, subsection of the staff is doing during the day. I want everybody to know, so everybody's on the same page. Because I'll tell you, one of my huge pet peeves, and this is like a big red line that nobody on our team ever crosses because they know not to, is I don't ever hear the terms "that's not in my job description" or "that's not my job." That is no, our job is to meet our patients' needs. That's it. How we do it, there's a myriad of ways, from emptying the garbage to vacuuming the floor to changing arch wires to scanning patients to, receiving payments, answering the phone, whatever that is. But but if you don't start from a role playing perspective where everybody is experiencing what's going on, frankly, that's a very difficult thing to achieve because then people start compartmentalizing. So I'll back off now and get off my soapbox, Lisa.
That is
Yeah.
one of the hardest things I have had in my career, is to convince people of what he just said, and what Lisa's going to pick up on here in just a second is that, we actually stopped selling on-demand memberships because we would get people buy them and they would want 900. And this is the point, everybody, of what you're doing to destroy your culture, right? Is it better to implement and just focus on the phones as an example, or the TC example for 1 year? Or is it better to focus on 10 things? And the majority of people, what they'll do is they'll buy on-demand courses, and they'll go, okay, TC, you go watch this. Assistants, you watch this. Receptionists, you watch this. And that's what you think is going to create a fast speed of implementation. And it does the exact opposite. You've all called 800 numbers and hit a prompt. Janice answers, and she can't help you. She's got to transfer it to Susie or Tim. Why? Well, because they're a corporation, they have unnecessary divisions, and they have no idea what the heck the other one's doing. You all are small business owners. You have no divisions. And the fastest way you're going to get things implemented is go slow, focused, and have the whole team be a part of it. You've got to change the mindset of, well, I got a clinical team and a front desk team. Wax it. You've got one team. Lisa, your thoughts?
That's 100% correct. I mean, you learn so much by hearing some of the struggles that the clinicians are going through that the everyday admin team doesn't hear, and vice versa. So by bringing them all together and discussing it and figuring things out, problem solving, as I call it, the role playing, everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows a little bit about everybody's position and can understand. So it's very important to do it together as a team.
And empathize.
Which is good. And
empathize. Because when the crap's going down in the back and everybody thinks it's all about them in the back, and all of a sudden, one of our team members up front gets off the phone with an irate mother, and then they come back too and say, hey, I've got this situation. Our team's not popping off at them because they understand the level of and the gravity of that phone call that just happened. Heck, to be honest with you, the nature of that happened this afternoon. I watched it. I watched one of our front staff members walked in the back, and it was a very inconvenient time of the day. And she pulled our lead aside, who was with a patient, and said, I've got this, this, and this going on. And then 20 minutes later, I saw that patient back in the back with, being addressed. So anyway, if you're sensing this is a front to back, cohesive, all-inclusive issue, again, all centered around trust.
Well, and the empathy part that he just talked about, and this is an all-day workshop in itself, but empathy is a trained skill set, everybody. One, you've got to have a culture that supports it. But I found this out many years ago when we started Wright Chat, which was 5 years ago now. We had answered for this pain relief center, and they would get calls like, my knees are killing me, please help. I can't move, my back, all the stuff. And you would think, and all of you can relate to this, call any 800 number and complain about your product or service, and it'll prove my point. You would think the natural human reaction to that would be, ma'am, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, we don't want you to be in pain. That's horrible. We've got the best doctors and tech around. We're going to get you out of that pain. Let's get you scheduled, right? But it's not. If I saw the nicest, kindest agents not go to the empathy card right after that, and if you're not training on it and it's not front and center, empathy will not exist in your organization. And just pay attention to it, on how your employees react to each other, on how the doctor reacts to you. There is very little empathy, and people do not lead with empathy at a high level in organizations at all. And that's why you need to get to know your employees. If you have make-believe named Janice getting beat up by her boyfriend, it's going to affect her at work. And if you don't care enough to learn about your people and understand those things, you're not going to create. It's another ingredient to the question, right? How do you create a high trust team? It's all of this stuff, but it's repetitive, never ending. And nobody wants to hear that, right? Everybody wants to hear the quick fix. There is no quick fix to leadership or culture. It does not exist. It's an ongoing, infinite journey. Steph, we got a question?
Hi, I was on mute. Okay, so this one is from Dr. Barron out in the Denver area, and it's for Dr. Paschal and Lisa. And she just looked up your Google reviews and saw you have almost 190 five-star reviews at one of your locations and over 130 at the other. How have you been so successful at that? And how do you get patients to actually post the photos? We have less than 50 and have been open for over 5 years.
I'm going to let Lisa take this one because this is all her and her team up front.
You know, it really starts with the immersive experience, and it's something that we have really strived for, and we want our patients to feel different when they come in the door. Yeah, we're great at technology. We implement a lot of that. Our doctor lectures all over the world, but that's not what people really care about. If you go and read those reviews, you'll see that it's a feeling. It's how they feel. It's how we make them feel. It's how we make their kids feel. And a lot of that is just everyday training, the role playing, caring about our patients, the empathy portion of it. And, you know, for a while there, we weren't getting reviews, and we were trying to do these, you know, gimme things. But as of late, it's been really more organic, where we're not really asking people for reviews. They're just going on and doing them. So I think, as Brian said before, a lot of it is it's work. You know, we've worked hard for it. We're starting to see the fruits of our labor. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it is something that we continually work on. You know, we have a saying in our office, what would Brian Wright do? And it's still something that motivates us. If we have a problem, we think it through, and I'll either shoot them a text, or we'll try to position ourselves. Okay, remember our training, and how do we get through this? So it's not overnight. It takes dedication, really. But that's the big goal.
And Lisa, one of the things too is the how portion of that. You know, you have trained our team to consistently make an ask. You know, if they know that there's a scenario where it's been a difficult appointment and the patient's like, oh, this was great, or whatever, the team is trained to look at them and say, I am so happy you had a great experience today, and thanks for working with me and getting through that difficult thing. Would you mind sharing that online? You know, and just the ask alone goes a long way. Now, you're going to ask 8 times and get 1 review, but if you don't ask 8 times, you're not going to get the 1 review. You know, that's it at the end of the day. And, you know, it's kind of like the most successful insurance salespeople on the planet are the ones that they don't stop picking up the phone and calling the next call or making the next ask. It's all in the quantity. It's just, you got to keep asking. And so that's the other thing, is set that you've built a team that trusts you. You've built a team that trust each other and the doctor. They're theoretically proud of the doctor then, and they're proud of what they do. Why not get them to ask? And why not get them to ask more patients, to share with more people? And that's the culture you build. And so we see that all the time. It's like, just ask. And in the first couple of times, it's hard, man. It is hard, because you'll put the meeting in place, you'll demonstrate it, you'll do it, you'll role play the ask, and then you know, Monday morning everybody's asking, and then by Thursday everybody's forgotten, and then the next Monday morning, nothing, crickets. Next thing you know, 2 weeks go by, and you're like, why aren't we asking anymore? You know, well, eventually you reseed it and reseed it and reseed it, and it happens. So, you know, we're at the point now where I think it's become pretty cultural, but people still don't love doing it. If we stopped emphasizing it, they'd eventually stop doing it, like anything else.
Well, that's like the role plays, right? The employees are not going to come tug on anyone's, you know, shorts or pants and say, hey, we're not role playing, we got to get it back, right? You have to be the leader, and you've got to force, just like you would your own kids, because it's better for themselves, it's better for their career, etc. But they're not going to push you. And I think with your practice, they've learned to embrace it, right? They have some fun with it. Nobody likes it, but they've embraced it. And that's the culture I want for everyone.
Some of them now, I'll tell you what reseeds it is, we've gotten reviews now where individual staff members have been named and situations have been named. And the team actually they kind of celebrate it now. You know,
Yeah.
we have all these 5-star reviews. About, what was it, 2 months ago, Lisa? We got a 1-star review. First one, right? And it was, now, honestly, if we weren't consistently getting reviews and we didn't have the culture that we had, it probably would have crushed me and
Yeah.
frankly the team. Because it was one of those things like, oh my God. Well, first of all, when I read it, I was like, none of us recognized the scenario that was being described. And I still question whether it was an actual patient, but that's okay. You know, but because of what we had built and the nature wrapped around the asking, the cool thing is nobody really talked about it. We acknowledged it. We talked about it in our team meeting. And then next thing you know, we get 3 more 5-star reviews like 2 or 3 days later. And by the end of the week, there was a couple more reviews, all of them 5 stars. We just kind of moved on.
And you guys do a great job commenting back, I have to say. Like, I looked at all of them because I was curious too to just see what she was saying. And I was like, wow, you write really in-depth responses. And that's huge.
Yeah, I have a question too about that.
Hey, Lewis, I want to say one thing really fast. So I want to say this to Dr. Barron. So one thing, I'm in Colorado Springs, so we need to get together. I heard you were in Denver, but I don't think a lot of times the answers you just received to that question most likely is not what you want to hear, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of people, and I see it at the AAO with people selling these little gadgets and automated reviews, and that's what everyone's looking for, right? They're crap.
I've done it, and I've wasted my money.
They're crap. This is how you automate your 5-star reviews. Is one, ask yourself and this is actually one of the things Jep told me, the reason why they signed. He saw me speak when I was OrthoFi's keynote, I think in 19 at their national event. And I had this screen up that shows the consumer journey, right? Your culture, your digital marketing, the call, what happens before they show up, all these interactions that you all have with customers, patients every single day. And you've got to create a story. Your business is a story. Every interaction is a new chapter. And it's difficult because people remember the negative, right? You could have 9 great and 1 poor, and they're going to remember that one. Or it doesn't even mean it's poor. It just may not be unexpected. So you've got to ask yourself throughout every piece of the puzzle in your organization, what are you doing that's unexpected, right? I couldn't find in any other people business in the world, hotel, $500 table for 2 restaurant, practice down the street. And the only way you accomplish that is by committing to training your people on an ongoing basis. And it does become easy, right? It's very hard in the beginning, but once it becomes easy, it becomes easy. And if you do that, you will have the 5-star reviews just like them. It's got to be unexpected experiences. And then you've got to train your people how and when to ask, and you will get them. But those 2 things have to happen for the recipe for you to get the reviews that you're looking for. There's no automation. It does not work.
I have a quick question too. This isn't submitted, but it just intrigues me. When you guys get that, and this might be a Lisa question, use that as a learning experience for your team, because your team, sometimes people can get very defensive when they get a negative review, and it wasn't my fault. It's this patient, whatever it might be. And it's like, hey, at the end of the day, it might not be your fault, but like, is there anything you do with your teams to, look at it and learn from it, use it as a learning experience, and kind of make it where it can actually benefit you versus just be defensive and say it's the patient's fault, not our fault?
Absolutely. We looked at the view, we dug into it, tried to pull any type of, positive things that we could get from it, what we could be doing differently in the future. And a lot of it comes down to communication. That's a big core in our office, is making sure that we're communicating with one another as a team and communicating with our patients. So we took that review apart, and we talked about what we would do differently moving forward. And again, a lot of it, you want to take the posture of, well, what's that on us? We're a great practice. This person, it's not authentic, but you just never know, because the one person that writes something down, there may be 5 other people that may not have had a great experience. And you really need to learn from the one person that will come and say something, if it is a true valid, issue. So we talked about it. We took it piece by piece and kind of talked about from a customer service component of it, and then also, clinical aspect of it.
Cool side.
And you just continue to move on and you grow. And that 1-star review has been completely negated. I think we've had 28 since that. And I mentioned that last week in our Thursday meeting, just giving the staff an update on it. And it is what it is. We can't make everyone happy, but I had responded to that review asking them to call us, and of course they didn't. And it's not a patient name that we recognize. So, regardless, you take what you get and you learn from it and you move on. It's okay to make mistakes, but let's not repeat them. So we'll learn from it.
I think those 1-star reviews, everybody, sometimes they validate the 5 stars. If you're
Yes.
Europe and I see, right, you have 800 5-star reviews. Well, you're paying for them, right? Every once in a while, you're going to get a crazy person. And if you've got 100 5 stars and 1 star, 2 1-stars, they're going to ignore those and look at those people as nuts. So the goal is just get more 5s, don't harp on the 1s. But that's what I love about their practice, right? If you have a weekly meeting, next week you can sit down and go over that review. You can study it, find out if it's a real patient. If it is, look in yourselves in the mirror, role play the scenario, and get better. And that's what so many of you out there don't do. And if you're a basketball team, how would your sport team be if you played in the game all the time? They'd be terrible. They would get worse as time passed. And that's what all of you are. You're in the game from 8 to 5 every single day. And for whatever reason, and this is restaurants too and others, you don't see value in practicing your playbook and communication and all this. And if you just do it, the leaky holes will start plugging themselves. You'll have one record year after another, and you won't need to spend all this unnecessary advertising that a lot of you do.
That's a big
Amen.
thing we learned.
I know we're about an hour in, so I'd love to, thoughts. We've gotten some great comments so far. Everybody's very appreciative of, you guys are perfect examples of how practice should be working. And we had some great comments. We'll send you guys both afterwards of, from Greg Goggins and a couple others. But is there any kind of final thoughts? We have a couple minutes left before we wrap it up. If there's anything you guys would want to hit on.
So whenever I lecture, I always like to leave whoever's listening with something to try to implement Monday morning, and I just want to give one thing away that we did. And I think this was even before Brian came. But we do a morning huddle just like everybody else in the industry, which I highly recommend. But one of the things we do in that morning huddle is we have always shared gratitudes with each other, and nobody can get off the hook. Everybody has to share gratitude, and it could be something mundane or it could be something really significant. And if you get in the habit of every single huddle, spend 4 minutes or 5 minutes, every team member gives a gratitude, then over time, you will be amazed at the trust and the respect and the knowledge you have about your team members, about each other. It is amazing what happens. Honestly, I can't emphasize it enough. It's almost transformative for your team. So Monday morning or tomorrow, because most of us are working tomorrow, implement it. Start doing gratitudes and explain it to the team and just say, what are you grateful for? I want to hear from each and every one of you. What are you grateful for today? And share your gratitude and move on to the next.
I will also add that sometimes there are team members that say, I'm having a hard time today being grateful for something. And that's when we circle around them, and it's not necessarily we all physically circle around them, but we know that, okay, she's having a bad day or she's, going to need some help. And it's just another window into we call it the Paschal family. It's a window into what they're going through. It's a great exercise. I highly recommend it as well. That was a great point, Dr. Paschal. So
love it.
I love that. I really love that. That's awesome.
This job that we do, everybody, is a hard one. And a lot of times it's not that gratifying because nobody tells you a good job, pat in the back. But I want to tell both of you, Thanks. Because one, I'm a words of affirmation person, and you guys have given me a lot of it over the course of the years. And the team made a "What Would Brian Say" T-shirt that they gave me. No one's ever done that before. And it really means a lot. You know, it's an industry that doesn't tell you thanks a lot, but if you don't do something right, they'll let you know that. So I really appreciate it. The relationship's awesome, and you know, it's an honor to help you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Hey, everybody.
Well, thank you guys. Go
Brian,
ahead,
I'm
Brian.
going to give out a free code. So everybody on here, so we have an on-demand course, and it's the Navy SEALs Team 6, and it's Trust First Performance, how to create a high trust team. And I'm going to give out a code. We can email this out to the audience, B. Lewis.
Yeah, we can.
It's going to be trust. That's the code. And you got to give us a few minutes, like a day or two, to implement it, because we've got to go in and create that code. But I'd like everybody to get that course and go through it. And it's going to give you a lot of insights on how the Navy SEALs do this high performing team and this high trust team. And it could be a good on-demand course for everybody. I think it's normally like $200, but let's give it to them for free.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to supplement that course, Jacko Wilco's Extreme Ownership. It's a must read.
Yep. Yes.
We read it as a team probably 2 years or a year ago, Lisa.
Yeah.
Went through every single chapter. It really was good. We had a great time doing it. So recommend that.
And again, on our Thursday meeting, we would review the chapter, you know, and learn and role play about, you know, so it's important.
Beautiful.
I've read that book myself. Like, I love it. I love that you guys. That guy is a wild man.
Yeah.
He's beyond impressive.
Yeah.
But that's great. I want to thank you guys so much. You know, like I said earlier, if your practices are struggling with some of these things, if you need help implementing things, check out New Patient Group. There's so many things that they can do. If your front desk is struggling, you know, you guys wear a lot of hats, you know, so Wright Chat can help you in a lot of different ways as well. So wrightchat.com, newpatientgroup.com. Check it out. Schedule a call with us. I mean, you know, it's very informal, and we want to learn about you, your practice, and you know, if it's the right fit, if we think we can help you, we'd love to do it. If not, you know, I mean, we're going to continue to put out content like this every, you know, at least every month, every couple months with speakers just like, you know, Dr. Paschal and Lisa, who have been incredibly insightful tonight. And I thank you guys both for joining us and doing this with us tonight. So,
Yes,
my pleasure.
I want to leave the whole audience on this thought. And it took me a long time to come up with it, but we've been saying this, and I want you to leave thinking this way. So if you went to a restaurant and you showed up, you sat down at the table, and they handed you a bill for $600 for a table for two, before you ever tasted any liquor, any drinks, any food whatsoever, what are all the things the restaurant would have had to have done leading up to that for you to justify that $600 table for two bill? That's what all of you are as orthodontists. You're handing them a bill before they can taste the food. And all the things that make up that patient justifying that bill, especially if it's higher than the other four opinions, is what we do with New Patient Group. And I want all of you to constantly be thinking experience, because that's what the restaurant would have had to have done, A to Z, the valet, how they greeted you, the initial call, their website, etc., leading up to that bill. That's who New Patient Group is, and that's what you all must think. Employee and customer experiences. It must be on your brain at all times, all right? We appreciate everybody coming. Jep, Lisa, I love you.
Love you too, man. Take care.
Tell the kids hi.
Bye.
And tell
take
Will
care,
I'm
guys.
jealous.
Have a wonderful night. Thank you all for joining.